everybody, it's Raine from Initiative Tabletop. Today I want to talk to you about a small game that we received not too long ago that's a little different than most of the games that you've been seeing us review lately. From Z-Man Games, this new game is called Dark Stories, 50 Twisted Tales. Now, it comes in this little box here. You can see it's from Z-Man. And like I said, it's a little bit different than what we've been doing lately. It's not your average tabletop game. So I want to jump right into this, and so we're going to bring it in. I'm going to show you what's inside the box, and we're going to talk about Dark Stories just a little bit. Alright guys, so this is Dark Stories. Like I said, it comes in a small little box here, and the box is actually pretty unique too. It just kind of flips up like this. Inside you're going to have the rule book. That's actually just a giant card that's been flipped over a few times. And so you just flip it open. It tells you a little bit about what Dark Stories is, a little bit about the scenarios and how the game plays out. And then on the back here, you've got some information about the person who made the game, the designer. So this is really cool. So all that's to this game is you've got the box, the rules, and a bunch of cards. These cards are bigger than your normal playing cards. They're nice and thick. They're really made out of a good sturdy material. But let's talk about exactly what Dark Stories is and how it plays out. So Dark Stories is a deduction game. It's kind of a thinking game, but it's all about macabre, twisted, messed up stories. So it definitely fits on my gaming shelf. The way it works is that one person is going to take a card and read what's on the card. You've got a picture, a title, and then what's on the card here, a little story. On the back of the card, you're going to get a little bit more information. It's going to tell you what's going on with the story. You're going to have another picture, and then again, some more information about the story. The goal of the game is whoever is not reading the card, everyone else is an investigator. You can only ask yes or no questions to try and determine what's going on in the story for each card. The hard part about this is that number one, you can only ask yes or no questions, and number two, the stories on the front, the idea that you have to pull this big story from, it's very, very vague, and you have to really think outside the box. I'll give you an example. Let's look at this one. This card is called The Suitcase. It says, a woman opened her suitcase, finding a dead man inside. She took her own life. At this point, all of the other players would be able to ask in a series of yes or no questions one at a time to try and decipher what's going on in the story. Now, there's no limit to how many questions you can ask. It's basically up to the person who is reading the card. If you ask a question that we don't feel is relevant, they'll tell you this isn't relevant to the story, or things like that to try and steer you on the right path. So for instance, in this, I would ask, was the person inside the suitcase related to her? Was the person inside the suitcase a man? Was it a woman? Did she know the person? Things like that. So let's go ahead and just take a look and tell you what the story actually is. The dead man was her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was not permitted to leave the country, so they decided to put him in her suitcase to be checked in as luggage for her flight. However, the heating in the luggage compartment failed and the boyfriend froze to death. So, definitely not unicorns farting rainbows. This is a little bit dark, a little crazy. We'll look at another one too, just to give you a kind of an idea of what this is all about. This story is called The Light Switch. It says, the inhabitant of a solitary dwelling turned on a light every night before bed. One morning, after listening to the radio, he threw himself into the sea. Yes, I read that upside down. That was amazing. So, you know what, to be honest, I don't even know where to go with this one. This one's one of those that's just super crazy. It's out of the box. I don't even know what question I would ask. He lived in a solitary dwelling. He turned the light on every night before he went to bed, and then after listening to the radio, he threw himself into the sea. So let's kind of see what's going on here. The inhabitant of this particular dwelling was the warden of the coast's main lighthouse. That morning, the radio reported the biggest shipwreck of all time. The warden realized that he had forgotten to turn on his lighthouse's light, thereby causing the shipwreck. He would never forgive himself, so he threw himself into the sea. You can see the sinking ship there. It's all kind of gross. But yeah, definitely not some lighthearted stories. But you know what? That's exactly how the game plays out. There's 50 cards, 50 stories. There are some expansions that add a bunch of different stories. But I mean, it's a quick game. It's a quick party game. You can play it numerous times. And yeah, that's a little bit about how Dark Stories plays out. I actually love Dark Stories. I think it's a whole lot of fun. It's a game that you can bust out and play really quick. It's a game that you can play with people who aren't even normally gamers. And I'm a big fan of deduction games. I like games like the Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective. Mystery Express is another really good deduction game. I really like games like that. So this really forces me to think outside the box. I mean, there were a lot of stories in here that I just would not have guessed. Like, I think there was one, spoiler alert by the way, I think there was one where a woman threw herself off of a building, and on her way down, right before she hit the ground, she regretted it. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, this woman jumped off a building. Maybe she had a parachute that didn't, pop when it was supposed to. No, she thought she was the last survivor of a nuclear holocaust, and on her way down, she heard a phone ring from one of the rooms in the building, and then she regretted it because that let her know she wasn't the only survivor. So when this says 50 twisted tales, it really means it. My only drawback for this game is the same drawback that everybody has for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Once you play this game all the way through with your group of friends, it is never the same. You can never play and enjoy those stories again because you've gotten through them. Everybody knows the right story, but that being said, you can still play this with new people. Like, I would love to take this to a convention and drop it out and just start getting people to come over and asking them these questions just to see what I can do to throw people off or see what people really think. But yeah, this is something I would definitely recommend to someone if you play a lot of demos, or if you show off games, or if you go to a lot of conventions or a lot of events or have a lot of big parties with a bunch of different people. Dark Stories is fantastic. And you can also get the expansions for it, which add a lot more stories to it, but then again, you're still going through the same thing after the same thing. It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity too. Once all of the questions have been asked and you've answered every question with like butt cheeks or Donald Trump getting his scrotum caught on a curtain hanger or whatever the cards are. I mean, it kind of gets the same feel every time. But don't let that discourage you. Definitely check out Dark Stories. It's a great game. I like to see what's going to come from this, and I definitely want to get my hands on some of the expansions. So that being said, guys, thank you very much for checking out this review. Thank you for sending us a copy of that Z-Man Games. We really appreciate all of your support. And we appreciate your guys' support who watch the videos and who have stuck with us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, post them below. I'll do my best to get to them. And as always, guys, until next time, happy Twisted Gaming.